I'm glad to say joining me now is Pete Emms of WVCS. He's the Volunteer Centre Coordinator. Good to see you, Peter. Important day, really, celebrating the volunteers across our city.
Yeah, thanks for asking us along, Chris. Obviously volunteering is a key element to Wolverhampton, many organisations, and obviously the first week in June, the 1st to 7th, it's National Volunteers Week, which give many organisations an opportunity to really reward the volunteers and to help say thank you to the many volunteers across the city, quite literally thousands of volunteers.
Well, it's the lifeblood of the city in many ways, and many other cities too. But we just focus on Wolverhampton. But without our volunteers and things, we wouldn't be here as a radio station. That's for certain. And other organisations wouldn't exist as well.
Yeah, exactly, and I mean it's an often quoted statement, but volunteers are kind of like the glue that can hold communities together, quite literally. And as somebody once said, if volunteers organise a strike, many key organisations would literally grind to a standstill. So yeah, volunteers are essential to obviously the lifeblood of the city, and obviously to many vulnerable people out there.
Indeed, I'm not going to blow our trumpet, but we have to count up our volunteer hours, as many organisations do, and I think it's 10,000 hours a year. So, it's a massive amount of, and I know of other organisations I have the privilege to work with, it's hours and hours and hours that they put in order to make sure their organisations continue. So you're having an expo. Tell us about your expo.
Yeah, we're holding the Volunteers Expo at the atrium at the Civic Centre. It's in the middle of, obviously, Wolverhampton. People know where the Civic Centre is. And that's going to be June the 7th on a Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So on that day, it gives people an opportunity to come along and look at the organisations in attendance, really. We've got about over 20 organisations in attendance, from like the Red Cross, YMCA, Compton Care, NSPCC, Beacon Centre. So we've got lots of organisations that really can have a chat to, find out more what they do, help raise the profile of volunteering. So all we're saying is to people to come along that day. If you're interested in volunteering and obviously want to find out more, this is a great opportunity. The last 3 years have been quite difficult, as we all know. Everything changed in 2020, and so a lot of people, almost like volunteering, has slipped off a lot of people's radars in some ways. And nationally, volunteering has taken a bit of a backseat in many ways. And I think there's almost like a collective amnesia sometimes that volunteering is available and people can do it. And as we say, volunteering, as we say, it's like a stepping stone to get you to where you want to be. It's not necessarily a means to an end. It's one of those things where whatever you want to do within Wolverhampton Volunteers, when people come and visit us, it's finding out what their journey is, and obviously how volunteering can help them to basically get them to where they want to be.
And if you're thinking about volunteering, don't just see yourself as free labour, because it's not that at all, is it? It is that stepping stone, as you say, but also putting around that, and I know you do this, you put around the kind of the agreement with, what's expected of us, what's expected of you with regard to that kind of charter agreement there with volunteers, so that people's contributions are really valued.
Yeah, absolutely. And volunteers are valuable in any organisation that obviously utilises volunteers. They are treated obviously as a member of staff. They get the same kind of like conditions, as in like they'll receive full inductions with organisations, full training packages. Many organisations offer help with volunteers to find out what their personal development is. So if they look at it maybe getting into work, or maybe they're looking at experience in a specific field, it's really helping that volunteer. They're not just an add-on to an organisation, as we alluded to at the very beginning of the conversation. Many volunteers obviously, literally help run so many community projects. The value is immeasurable. We can measure it in hours, and we can kind of like put a financial kind of like thing on it, but ultimately it's much more what happens within the community and how it brings communities together. And as I said earlier, that glue that can hold communities together often.
And what about age? Is there any restriction on age? Can you be a young volunteer that might help you towards the job? Because we know 18 to 24-year-olds in our city are struggling to find those opportunities. Or, can you be at the other end of the spectrum? Or is it anywhere you want?
At Wolverhampton Volunteers, obviously people visit us on a regular basis to talk about what volunteering opportunities are available. So pretty much, from an age range, we've had people in the 70s, 80s who want to volunteer. I did some volunteer work overseas many years back, and one of the people there was 85. So there's literally no limits to age range.
And sometimes when people have retired, keeping something going there helps their own mental health stability, keeps the grey cells ticking around,
Yeah, absolutely. And it is one of those things. We had a gentleman come in many, many years back, and he was kind of like very dejected. He couldn't get a job. He'd worked pretty much all his life. And of course, when you're not working, because work is more about than just financial stuff, it's about the socialization, having routines, mixing with people. And obviously, he couldn't find work. And it turns out, obviously, I asked a bit more about what his background was. He used to be in engineering. He had qualifications that like you wouldn't believe, so much life skills and everything else. And we got him set up with a project which was like acting as a mentor to young people leaving education and going into employment for the first time. And when we saw him last, it was like a new lease of life, because he was sharing those skills and all that knowledge with these young people, and passing it on to a new generation, really. And I could tell you many stories where volunteering has quite literally been life transforming. So obviously at Wolverhampton Volunteers, we're very passionate to promote volunteering, but we don't talk about volunteering, we talk about the benefits of volunteering,
right,
and what it can offer people.
Excellent. So, again, it sounds like these people are inspiring you in your role as well, from the way you're talking about them so passionately. So let's remind people of the event. It's on Wednesday, June the 7th, from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. in the atrium in the Civic Centre. And people just go along there and find out what volunteering is all about and the kind of things they can get involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. As in Volunteers Week, as we mentioned, it is rewarding people. So some of the volunteers there will be obviously receiving awards and certificates on the day. But really, yeah, just obviously come along and see how volunteering, have a chat to some organisations, come and meet the team at Wolverhampton Volunteers, and see how volunteering can make a difference to yourself and to others.